We have an added treat for you today that we I had somebody show up in the playa I didn't expect to see here, and those of you who already know Mark Pesce know you're in for a real treat. And Mark Pesce is going to do a short presentation for us here. I'll say this, and I hope you'll give his website address. His website has so much information, essays and sound, MP3s. You can spend days there. I have, and I guess the best way for me to introduce Mark is that I think he has probably one of the most brilliant minds I've had the privilege of encountering on this planet. So please help me welcome Mark Pesce.
This is probably the only time I will be able to give a lecture wearing a sarong. Don't you love Burning Man? I've been spending my time, I would have been in here more, but we've been having a sort of alternate series of speakers over at the Oracle at Arrowhead, which is where I've been camped. Now, everyone in this room is an Arrowhead member, right? Everyone in this room is an Arrowhead member, right? They need your money. They do God's work, and you all know it, because how often do you go to that site? Oh my God, what did I just take? I'm going to go to Arrowhead to find out. Okay. Today's talk is actually going to be on the topic of the future, because that's the topic of Burning Man this year, the future, hope, and fear. So today's talk is called The Future of All. Now, the future of all, at least as far as scientists envision it, is a gradually approaching senescence, a slow senility. Everything expands and cools like nitrous from a whippet, until finally all has ceased in its movement. And that, of course, is perhaps 1 trillion years from now. So it's probably more appropriate today, here at Glencoe Norte, to talk about other sorts of futures, which are just as all-consuming, but perhaps somewhat more immediate. And there's a word. It's on nearly everyone's lips. It's most often left unvoiced. And you know that word, and if you know me, you know damn well that I know that word too. Eschaton. The impending end of everything. I'm paying off, that's my sound effects guy. It's become the fixed star in this particular corner of culture, that on 21 December 2012, the world comes to an end. Now, knowing your expiration date, that's a very big thing. It's a huge thing. It can be amazingly empowering, possibly. But this received knowledge, we must ask, did you receive it? Was it received by you personally? Or did you read it? Or did someone tell you? In other words, did it come, in short, via human communication? Because while we must trust communication, we must always distrust communication. Every word we hear is both truth and lie. And yet, so many are ready to believe. They're ready to take that leap of faith. They're ready to declare this sick, corrupt, shallow, unconscious mess that we politely call civilization a failed experiment. And because we are ready to believe, we are ready to receive the word of the eschaton. We receive it uncritically, we receive it unthinkingly, we receive it unconsciously. And this idea drives a huge segment of the community. It's become an idée fixe. It's become an organizing principle. Now, as some of you may know, if you've heard one of my talks over at Arrowhead, I have nothing against knowing your expiration date. It can be quite important. It can drive you to dedication. It can drive you to getting your shit in gear. It can drive you to self-work. But I need to ask you all, look in your hearts and look at your culture and tell me if you see this happening. Does the knowledge that there's just a little bit more than 6 years left on the civilizational clock drive any individual that you have ever met anywhere? Have we seen anyone abandon their attachments and prepare themselves for this presumed inevitable end? You know the answer. I know the answer. That answer is no. Now, if you really believed it, things would be different. We have precedent for this. In this country, in the 1830s, a preacher by the name of Miller did a whole bunch of arithmetic and declared, lo and behold, I have calculated the date of the second coming, October 12, 1843. And he began to preach around America, and he gathered up a band of followers, and they were called the Millerites, and the Millerites prayed, and they worshipped, and they lived in a sort of primitive apostolic communism and shared the goods, and as the great day approached, they sold their goods off one by one, and the great day approached, and it passed. Ah, Miller said, I'm sorry, I've made a small mistake in my arithmetic. 1844, I forgot that there's no 0 AD. And so his followers rejoiced. He said, this time for sure. And they waited and they prayed, and the blessed day approached, and it passed. And in American history, this is known by historians as the Great Disappointment. Now the Millerites had sold or given away everything they owned in preparation. And now poor and disappointed, they went forth. And some of them became what we know today as the Seventh-day Adventists. Others became smaller Protestant sects. And so on. And this pattern repeats. In 1914, the Jehovah's Witnesses preached the end of the world, which they saw coming at the beginning of the First World War. And then in Jonestown in 1978. And then Heaven's Gate in 1996. It's a recurring theme, the absence of an end forcing the hand of God. But actually, seriously, we have a lot less to worry about. If I saw anyone, anywhere, actually acting as though 2012 were some sort of inevitability, I would be worried. Instead, we carry on blindly, blandly, as though time stretched on indefinitely, without limit. And that's, in one sense, very reassuring, and in another, quite depressing. Now, I am not John the Baptist. I am not declaring the coming of the end, nor, should I make clear, did Terence McKenna. He put his received wisdom out there, and he did not say, take and eat. What he said was, take this and test this. And I think his greatest disappointment was that so few people actually took that challenge up. Instead, his fans took up his story. They took it up hook, line, and sinker. They set their clocks and they waited, but they did nothing. And I think that that is this era's great disappointment. Now, what would we do if we really believed in our hearts that the eschaton was so close to hand? That knowing would transform us. It would transform our actions into perfection. It would transform our vision into utter clarity. It would transform our hearts into perfect love, perfect trust, and perfect understanding. And I do not see this. And yet we hope. And if only because of my own association with McKenna, people often look to me for that confirmation that it is coming, that it is true, even when it's not on the menu.